Okay, it's probably not the most familiar passage to many of you. So, what about this, the Book of Esther? Well, the Book of Esther tells the story of a Jewish girl living under the rule of the Persian king, who is variously called Ahasuerus or Xerxes. So, he pays your money and he takes your choice. What name are you going to know him by? Ahasuerus or Xerxes? Now, Esther is an orphan girl. She's been brought up by her older cousin, a man called Mordecai. And things take a very unexpected turn in her life when King Ahasuerus falls out with his then queen, a woman called Vashti. I know there's lots of names here: Esther, Mordecai, Ahasuerus, Vashti. Okay? So Ahasuerus falls out with Vashti. And he falls out with her so much that he actually says on your bike, I want a new queen. He wants her replaced. So what happens is, Ahasuerus sends out across the whole of his kingdom for all the most beautiful of girls to be brought to his capital, Susa. And they're brought in, and they're brought into the palace, and they're brought into his harem, and they are given special treatment there. And then Ahasuerus gets to choose. He chooses the one who he wants to be his new queen instead of Vashti. And Esther is one of the girls who is brought to the palace, brought into the harem. And when she appears before Ahasuerus, he is absolutely smitten. And she is the one who Ahasuerus chooses to be his new queen. So Esther, this Jewish girl, becomes the queen of the Persian Empire. She's been pampered beyond her wildest dreams. But there's one important detail that we need to know. She keeps her Jewish nationality secret. So the king does not know that she is a Jew. So there's part of this story. But there's something else. What happens with Mordecai? Well, meanwhile, while all of this is happening, life for Mordecai takes all kinds of twists and turns of its own. Firstly, Mordecai uncovers a plot to kill the king. And he goes and he sends a message to Esther uncovering the plot to kill the king. And Esther goes and tells Ahasuerus that there are people wanting him dead. And the conspirators are arrested. They're executed. But here's the thing. You might have thought that because Mordecai was responsible for uncovering this plot, that the king would have rewarded him. But actually, somewhere it gets all lost in the bureaucracy. And Mordecai does not get a reward. The man who is kind of rewarded by the king is a man called Haman. And Haman becomes, if you like, the prime minister of the Persian Empire. Second to the king. And he's the kind of person who really is full of himself. Haman is so proud and arrogant that when he's put in this position of power, he goes to the king and he says, "King, because I've done so much for you and I'm in this power, don't you think it would be a good idea if everybody in the kingdom bowed down to me?" And Ahasuerus says, "Seems like a fair enough idea to me." So Ahasuerus sends out a royal decree that everybody's to bow down to Haman. And people do. They go on their knees in front of him when he passes by. All except Mordecai. And Mordecai refuses to do that. And because Mordecai refuses to do that, Haman says, "This man's insulted me. That's a terrible thing. I'm worthy of respect and honour from everyone, including this man Mordecai, but he won't do it." And so Haman decides that he wants revenge. But he wants revenge not just on Mordecai alone. He hatches a plan that will see all of Mordecai's people killed, exterminated. And he gets the king to send out a royal decree that the Jews will be killed. Every single one of them. All the Jews in the Persian kingdom. So that decree is sent out to all the governors of all the provinces. And it's only in that way that Haman feels that he's going to have his revenge. You see, the Holocaust was nothing new. Genocide is nothing new. It has a long and sorry history in the story of the human race. So all that's the background to the reading that we had this morning that Dave read for us. And I want to draw 3 lessons out of it. Because what happens? Well, at this moment, Mordecai, knowing that his people and his own life is under threat, sends a message to Esther asking her to intercede for her people. And at first, Esther was uncertain. It's a moment of terrible jeopardy, terrible risk for her people, the Jews, but for her also because she is a Jew. She put the risk to her own life in stark terms. This is how it appears in that reading. All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death, unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their life. If she goes into the king, she's going to get put to death, unless the king has mercy on her and holds out this scepter. The Persian king is an absolute monarch with absolute powers, and court etiquette is rigorous and brutal. For Esther to go to the king, even before raising so great a concern as what will happen to her people, she will be taking a huge risk. and she'd have to reveal her own background. And that risk, that jeopardy, was what Esther had to weigh up at this critical moment. And what's the lesson for us? Well, I think it's this. Are we willing to take risks in the name of justice? Are we willing to take risks on behalf of the people of God, the church as a whole? Are we willing to take risks for the weak and the vulnerable? Are we willing to take risks if God asks us to? Risks. Second, as Mordecai detects the quandary that Esther is feeling, his second message is the pivotal part of the whole story and one which has much to say to us. This is what he said. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. This is where it comes. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. You have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Mordecai challenges Esther that actually her extraordinary rise to the position of queen had placed her in just the right place at the right time to influence the king for good. She's the right person in the right place at the right time. She alone can save the Jewish people from their fate. That was his message, and he urges her not to duck the implications, thinking that she can hide from the destruction about to be unleashed on her people. Now, we may not have the fate of a whole people in our hands, but do we think that we have been put where we are in a particular place, our community, our work, our homes, our church, for a particular purpose? Because that's what God does. Are we open to the idea that we are meant to play a part in God's great plan now, where He has put us? Perhaps we need to view our lives in a far more strategic way in terms of God's kingdom than we perhaps do. Life may not just be a series of accidents and random choices after all. So what has God placed you here now to do? That's the question. Ask you. Lastly, the Book of Esther is unique in the Bible in that God actually is not mentioned by name in it. There are no other books that this is true of. But underpinning it is the question of who is in control. Is it King Ahasuerus? Is it Haman who's pulling the strings while the king enjoys all the privileges of his position? And what are Mordecai and Esther? But the real answer of the Book of Esther is that the God who is not named is the one in control, even when he's not named. Even when you can't see this God, even when events seem to be taking a distinctly dark turn, God is in control. We need to remember that, particularly in these times in which we live. We need to live in the light of this message that God is in control. We need to declare that to others as well as believing it deep down in our hearts. We need to hear that message. We need to live it. We need to share it. This is the story of Esther.